Good afternoon, and on a sunny day in London, welcome to our webinar on the current and future trends for the contact centre in 2013. I'm joined here today by Brian Atkinson, who heads up the contact centre group in Cisco, and also by Louise Forgan, who is a consultant within Protocol One. And the purpose of today's webinar is to share with you the results of a survey that we did that look at the future trends within the contact centre. I don't think it's any surprise that improvements in customer experience came up as the most highly rated area that you're all focused on. And therefore, to put some context around that in today's session, firstly, we're going to hear from Brian around some research that Cisco have done in terms of the evolution of the contact centre. That will then be followed by Louise in terms of the results from the survey, and then Brian will give us a further session that focuses down on the technology and how that can be an enabler to improve customer experience. We will have time to cover off some questions and answers from the panel. So your opportunity to join in with this session today is twofold. Firstly, you'll see a box on the right-hand side that allows you to ask some questions. And I do urge you to, as you think of questions, as you're listening to the speakers, to tap them into the box, and then they'll get forwarded to us and we will deal with them in the panel session. We will also be running a series of polls, one at the end of each presentation. Again, that's an opportunity for us as a group to get some real-time feedback around the topics that you're hearing and how you're applying them within your own organisation. So again, when those polls come up, I do request that you take part, and that then means that we have a critical mass of responses that will be worthwhile sharing. So with no further ado, I will hand over to Brian.
We take a look at the industry, and there's a couple of ways that different people have looked at it. But one of the ways that we really look at it is really around waves of customer care innovation. And this is really about looking back into the history of contact centers, and we envision that there really is three waves, and we believe that these waves are ongoing, so they don't end, and they're also cumulative, so that they at any point in time you may be focusing on wave one, but you may also be focusing on wave two, and you also may be focusing on wave three. Now, wave one, let's just do a little definition here. Wave one really takes us back 30 to 40 years with the kind of the inceptions of the call centers, and when these first started, back in the 70s, really this was all about optimizing costs and processes and those calls, and starting to provide really the inception of customer service, and that's still a very key factor in the 1990s. So we saw that go through into the 2000s, and even today, cost is definitely a driving factor. But as the industry matured, we started to look at really another wave that came along, and this was kind of in the mid to late 90s, where we started talking about relationships, and really this was the era of the CRM integration and being able to provide that segmented customer care model, where if you have a priority customer coming in online, being able to differentiate based upon database access or a customer account number, and be able to provide differentiated levels of service, and then be able to provide the tools to the agents to provide a better experience. And we'll take a look at some of the influencing factors in a couple of these different ways as we move forward. The third wave is really around experience, and this started to emerge, recently within the last 10 years, really kind of mid to late 2000s. I think this wave is unique in the fact that it's really been driven more by the consumers. The first two waves, cost definitely driven by the business, relationship as we get into establishing a better relationship with a customer, that was about customer loyalty and maybe gaining more wallet share from that customer. But really the experience wave, it's all being driven by consumers, and it's been driven by a lot of the mega trends that we're seeing in the world around smartphones, access to the internet, and other types of mega trends that are impacting the world as a whole. I think in the experience wave as well that a couple of key things is around having consistent and contextual experiences across the entire organization. For example, if a promotion is taking place for a mortgage at a retail branch location, and as I walk by, I look on my smartphone, I see that same offer, and then I want to contact the contact center or the organization about this offer, and then the contact center has no idea of this offer, that kind of inconsistent or uncontextual experience is not what I'm after, and I expect a really key experience as I look into my customer care going forward. I have a picture here of Tom Kelly from IDEO. He, if you're into reading books, he's got two key books that he's actually written. One called The Art of Innovation, and second, the 10 Faces of Innovation. And it really talks about how you untap a culture of innovation inside of your organization. So some really good reading there, and it really talks about how can we take the contact center, move it away from a cost center, and apply innovation in through these three waves, and actually see it move to more of a strategic part of the business. So if we take just a little bit deeper look into these three waves, if we look back in time, some of these waves were defined by the characteristics of time, from a place. Contact centers used to be a place that we all went to, and in some instances, it still is that case today, being an agent or a supervisor. And that was, the limitations of maybe the technology at the time. It could have been the cultural era that we lived in back a few years ago as well. And it could have also been driven by business processes, right? As the organizations within businesses were very heavily silo-driven, back 10, 15 years ago, and we started to break down those silos. We start to take a place where we move into this relationship wave, and it becomes more of a system where it's not just the ACD anymore, but it's about how do we leverage the other capabilities inside of the organization. And you can see that, from a management perspective, this is where we started to get, marketing more involved to understand how can we leverage the contact center to do cross-sells and upsells. How can we, gain more wallet share? As I mentioned, you can see some of the key metrics that were really involved in that wave. And then, as I mentioned, we're kind of in this, transition to wave 3. And, from what we're seeing from a UK market perspective, we have customers that are kind of still in wave 1 predominantly, some that are still predominantly in wave 2, and some that are trying to get to wave 3. But I think we're kind of in this shift of, between wave 2 and wave 3, but we're still focused a lot on making sure that cost is of utmost importance to make sure that we're focused on. As we get to this enterprise service, you can see that really this is about extending the contact center just beyond the contact center and making sure that those silos of technologies are broken down. An interesting point in the metrics there inside of the, as we move to this experience wave, you see first contact resolution and net promoter score. So net promoter score has been very heavily been focused on in the U.S. We've been seeing that as a global trend. And as you'll see in the survey results here in a little bit, that first contact resolution is actually quite critical to the survey participants. What I find interesting, though, is that from a platform perspective and even from a business process perspective, most of the organizations we're working with are more in that cost or relationship phase and not necessarily either able to or ready to get into that experience phase. So while the metrics they're wanting to look at are in this third wave, they're really stuck or limited by the wave 1 or wave 2 capabilities. So, across the bottom of that last slide was all about, ROI and how do we, build a business case for change. And I think that, if we look into, an ROI, there is definitely an ROI that we can look at across each wave. So whether it's, wave 1, which is really focused about cost, and this is things around operational ROIs, right? The ability to look at the platform you have today and think, well, the business is only going to give us X amount to literally take our end-of-life platform up to the latest and current release. And as we go across the different types of ROI here, from ROI to from operational to productivity or to strategic, we actually see bigger business benefits. So just performing a basic upgrade on your current platform, while that may avoid some risk, it may not give you the best return and may not actually make your business or organization more competitive in the marketplace. So then we think, well, how could we look at wave 2 and what kind of productivity enhancements could we see, by implementing technologies, even such as basic things that we've been talking about for many years, such as CTI or screen pops for agents. A majority of the customers we see are still not doing any of that for quite a few different reasons. And how could we leverage some of the newer capabilities that are in the current platforms to be able to make the contact center as agile as the business, or even be more agile than the business? And that's where we could start to see some key return on investments around that productivity or business process optimization. And really, kind of the highest return, and this has been proven and documented by different business schools across the world, really focusing on the strategic ROI and really understanding how can we make the contact center do something completely new, a brand new business model. And I'll give you an example of this later today as we close off with some of the future trends and visions around how the contact center can actually become very strategic at a board level and actually be seen as one of the most innovative centers inside of an organization from across the board. So I encourage you to take a look at the white paper that will be sent out afterwards around the 3 waves, and I would also encourage you to pay close attention to some of our results that are coming up in the survey in a few minutes, and we'd be more than happy to sit down and discuss this in a bit more detail. So we're going to run a quick poll with that, and I'm quite curious to understand where are you currently most focused at in your customer care cycle? Are you most focused in wave 1, where it's around cost and efficiency? Are you most focused in wave 2 around customer relationship, or are you really focused on wave 3, which is that complete experience focused? As I mentioned before, these waves are ongoing and cumulative, so you probably have some level of focus on each one of these. But I'd be curious to know which one out of the audience are most focused on. All right. We're just going to be pulling those results here in about 5 or 10 seconds, and then we're going to hand it over to Louise Forgan from Protocol One to discuss the results of our survey that we ran over the last few months. So quite interesting results here. So and that's actually quite surprising. It's quite good. So 26% of you said that you're focused more on the experience, which is great. 23% real focused on customer relationship, and then we got 10% focused on wave 1 and the cost. So quite an interesting spread of results. I think it's great that we're all focused in this direction, and I'd be curious as we dig a little bit deeper into this as we go on to understand if there's limitations or things that are actually stopping you from being able to produce that focus. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Louise Forgan. She's one of Protocol One's lead contact center consultants and has been in this industry many years. Louise?
Thank you very much, Brian, and thank you for responding to the poll. It does echo some of the findings that we've had. And as Brian said, I have been in the contact center industry over 20 years now, so it's never dull. It's never dull in that world. To sort of reiterate what Brian has said, we did a survey. We wanted to find out, both Protocol One and Cisco conducted an independent survey by an independent organisation. And the aim of the survey was to find out what are the current trends and future trends in contact centres for 2013. What are you doing now, and what are you likely to do in kind of the next year, 18 months? So we were looking at the now and the near future. We had over just under 100 people reply across small, medium and large, all industry segments. And these are some of the people who actually came back to us. So some very household names there. But as I said, it was all industries, all sizes, all complexities, which did come out in the survey. And what I've done in this, I have 15-20 minutes now to go through the survey results, but what I've actually done is I've sort of condensed it down into about 10 slides into what people are considering, what you with call centres are considering in 2013, Why are you considering it? How are you measuring that? And, what's happening? How are you going to either implement it? What are you doing about it? So that's the sort of format. And as I say, I have about 10 slides that will last about 15 minutes. So one of our key questions in our survey, what are your top 3 objectives in 2013? I guess it's no huge surprise there, but we did like the answer: improve customer experience. Over 80% of respondents said that was their key objective in 2013. I mean, we won't the second there was operational efficiency, very closely followed by employee engagement. But I have to say, when you're looking across improving customer experience, there is an old quote from Pete Blackshaw, says that satisfied customers tell 3 friends, angry customers tell 3,000. Well, that is very old hat now. The new mantra in the contact center guru world is a happy customer tells 1 friend, an unhappy customer tells everybody. So, it is a key driver now. We need to keep our customers happy. Customers are worth 10 times as much as their first purchase. So keeping them happy, keeping them loyal is key. The other thing that comes through on this survey is employee engagement. I will be referring back to that because that was as we were going through the survey, it popped up in many, many places. So we will look at those different items as we go through. And it sort of validates us when we look at other people who've been doing surveys. Forrester here was a great source of sort of customer metrics, etc. Last year in their customer experience index, said that only 7% of brands received good or excellent customer experience. 64% got okay, poor, or very poor. So, I think contact centres are taking on board customer is king. Look after your customer. We cannot afford not to. If you're not looking after your customers, someone else will. Get it right or they will punish you. Onto the next sort of area. We asked, what were you considering? What were the top 3 areas that you're reviewing and considering in 2013? Now, again, customer experience came out top of the bill every time, followed closely by first contact resolution there. And again, that metric has popped up right the way throughout our survey. Experience, empowerment, FCR, first contact resolution, one and done. Answer, if someone calls in, get them done there and then. Social media was a little surprise there because it was so high in the survey. I think, at last it was about 39% of people actually are now embracing the power of communities. They recognise that social media is an important area that is affecting and altering the way we do business in our contact centres. So it was quite an interesting metric to actually see that there. The surprise for us was that so few people were looking at video chat. 4% were only looking at implementing or reviewing, when we even consider the word review, reviewing video in their contact centres. Now, bearing in mind 4G, 5G, WebRTC are all coming down the line. The mobile world is here, face-to-face, Skype, everything is converging and hitting us. Yet it was such a few people looking at that. From almost a personal point of view, I am seeing banks are early adopters in this area. So what we're seeing is banks are having video in the contact centre with some video telepresence, video conferencing back at the branch. So they're having experts in a central resource and you then don't have to employ those experts, that skill set out at branch level, thus making best use of resource, or should I say best use of expensive resource by utilising them that way. The other thing we're seeing, again, sort of a slightly personal note, but in ITTs, many councils and local authorities are looking to have booths around their areas and looking to have video presence that then go back to the contact centre. So very interesting. But, let's not move away. Customer experience, first contact resolution, social media came out the highest, video chat was very long there. Okay, so you want to improve it. You want good customer experience. Well, how are you actually measuring your customer experience? I think there were absolutely no surprises there. Top again, customer satisfaction. And behind that metric, most people were measuring their customer satisfaction 60% or more by call recording, 55% by online forms, first contact resolution, those who can measure the metric were doing so, and of course the old favourite Net Promoter Score. So people are measuring it. That's the main method. Again, surprisingly, not many people were using speech analytics in that, but they were. It was part of the survey, but they're doing with what they know and trust best. They're using the methods that they know, but it is important to people. And as the I missed out one thing yet. The surprise to us was customer effort. The Harvard Business Review. It was a big metric coming down the line. It's sort of not that long ago. We don't need to delight customers. Delighting customers doesn't build loyalty. Reducing their effort to get their query answered or problem solved does. So I think we were quite surprised to see that so low down in a metric that contact centres were actually measuring. But as I say, the great man himself, your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. Call recording, you will hear unhappy customers and what they're saying. People will vent. I think we have to be cautious because, for every customer venting about bad service, there will be more just drifting away. We have to know, we have to understand, we have to measure, learn and improve. Okay, so, you know what you want, you know how you're measuring it. How are you improving your customer service? That was our next measurement there. This is something we would all love, happy customers jumping about, everyone saying how fantastic we were. But many of the thought gurus are saying, unless we're at 100%, there is room for improvement. So what are you actually doing about improving your customer service? Now, this is where I go back to the very first slide in that empowering agents and improving first contact resolution was a very common theme in how our contact centre managers, leaders, are actually going to improve the quality of your customer experience. Now, empowering agents is not a new thing within contact centres. I think what is new is people are really now doing something about it. We've worked with a utility who has really taken this on board, and if anyone wants to know more about that, by empowering agents, the metrics and the improvement in customer service that they have got by empowering agents. And I mean by empowering, it's not just all about environment and giving them free tea and coffee, etc. It's really about giving them the tools to do the job. I think it's Dr. Nicola Millard of BT, the futurologist of BT. I don't know if anyone's ever seen her perform. She's worth it, very exhausting, but worth it. But something that she has sort of banged the drum for a long time is 86% of people say that a good experience with a contact centre agent impacts positively on their loyalty to an organisation. So, get your frontline staff, the people who are actually talking to your customers, doing the right things by them. And then, of course, we've got first-time contact resolution. I think, within the workforce has more talent there than you realise. Give them independence, give them responsibility, give them the tools to do the job, and that first-time contact resolution will follow through. The age we're living in now, more channels, any time, any place, any channel, mobile, voice, web, we have to be saying our customers are demanding this, we have to respond. So, because first-time contact resolution was such an important metric to everyone, we did sort of say, what challenges do you face in improving it? What can you do to improve first contact resolution, FCR? And the biggest thing there, which is very interesting, was internal processes beyond the contact centre. That was the biggest challenge to most organisations, followed by setting a reliable metric. Basically, how on earth am I measuring this? What really is it? What counts as first SCR? But the biggest challenge from there was the internal process. So I sort of moved on from that with our survey and got some results that maybe answered some of our questions here. As part of your agent desktop, what tools have you got available for internal communications with experts within your business? So across the business, if I am a frontline agent, how do I get the knowledge to do the SCR? Interestingly, email, obviously a common, that makes absolute sense. Email is the prime, over 80%, the prime way of actually contacting within the organisation, followed closely by instant messaging and presence. Now, I find that quite interesting because obviously email is a tool of lag. Email is a fantastic tool, but it is not an instant tool. So if we're looking at agent empowerment and first contact resolution, then we're giving the tool as email is not an instant tool. It's not an FCR type of tool, because if I email someone, I may not get an instant response. In the world now of unified comms, which is making a difference, we can see instant messaging really creeping up. And I think we will see more of that. But, it goes back. Empower your agents, SCR, give people the tools to actually do the job that you want them to do. Moving now and looking from sort of more outside in, we also asked what channels of media are you currently using to interact with your customers? Absolutely no surprises. Well, I guess one surprise is it's not 100% voice. We do know of some contact centres who use sort of web chat and whatever exclusively, but email and voice, absolute top front runners. Every contact centre is using those channels. I think it was a little surprise in that 58% now have Facebook, 56 Twitter, 53 SMS/mobile texting, and 55 web. So obviously these channels are really racing up now to catch up with the email and the voice. And, I think, again, as consultants in this industry, we have to accept, when we're looking at the mobile world, 50-60% of under 30s have a smartphone or a smart device. And even in the general population of everyone in the UK, we're still looking at way over 30% have a smart device. For the first time this year, tablets, iPads, etc., have taken over in sales of PCs. So the mobile, anytime, any place, anywhere generation is here. It's, you cannot hide from this. So obviously the proper channels are there, or should I say the channels, the old-fashioned maybe, the real channels are there, but the others are catching up quickly. And the next question we then asked was, what channels media will you introduce in the next year for your customers? Again, no surprise, but all those apps that were a bit lagging behind voice and email are absolutely now beginning to catch up. We're all looking at nearly 30% introducing SMS texting, web, mobile applications. It is absolutely gathering pace. I'd love to do a survey next year. Will we see that at the 80%, 90% of voice and email that we are now? It's basically the rise of the connected generation. There is no place to hide in this world anymore. So we are seeing a huge sort of increase, and I think those who are not thinking of these mobile apps will be lagging. It also kind of plays into the cost to serve element of contact centres. Lots of these apps may be self-serving. IVR was obviously the first self-service channel of choice for many, many years. Now we're looking at web and mobile. I think we will see the rise of self-serve along these apps as well. Okay, so we're looking at now the blockers. What are the blockers to achieving your contact centre objectives? So what's stopping you getting that ultimate customer experience? The top three blockers actually for people in the real world doing what they need to do in the contact centres. First one, lack of resource. It was the highest. The biggest cost within contact centre is staff. There's always pressure on numbers, or dare I say, the common thing: if I had more bottoms on seats, I could answer every call or answer every email. It will always be a problem, and people are always looking for more. So that was the highest. Very, very closely followed by, interestingly, poor technology solutions and poor management buy-in. I think this also echoes now the era that we're in that the poor technology solutions, management buy-in. What we're seeing is all the traditional channels are well served and well done. Now the newer channels are coming in as bolt-ons. They're coming in as quick fixes. Typically, social media, you'll see any social thing will be done in the marketing department. Is it a channel? So I think contact centres are really thinking, yes, these channels should be coming in here. How are we going to do it? Our technology is not enabling us to do it. We need the technology to be able to help us do it. These silos are not helping us empower agents. They're not helping with first-time contact resolution because I can't measure and I can't control. So they are looking at how best to do what they have, but where are they going in the future? That really is touching towards the third age there. And I guess the sort of final two slides, the last two slides here, levels of investment. What is happening to the level of investment in your contact centre? Yes, we would all love it. Money to grow on trees, that would be absolutely perfect. It isn't all bad news. When we ask what is happening, 23% were increasing their budgets in investment. reduced almost the same amount, 26% budgets were being reduced. And then on top of that, budgets remaining the same, but on objectives, targets the same. But I guess the key thing, and I'm sure, this is echoed everywhere, budgets remain the same, but objectives and targets are increasing. Doing more with less. It isn't all about money. It's about good process, empowering staff, enabling technology, increasing efficiency. It is quite, what we're seeing is people are trying to service these channels with what they've got and the best they've got, but we really need to start looking at how we can be consistent across all these channels. As a customer, I won't complain, I just won't come back. And I think I'm just going to sort of end on this one before I go on to the poll. It's an old adage, really, but it's from Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. And we are in an area of change, and hopefully this will help. We'll have some insight here with Brian. Now, we will move on to the poll. So what are you doing within your own organisation? Please start voting now. The votes are coming in. It's a bit like the Eurovision Song Contest. We'll give you nearly there. Right, we're down to the last few seconds. Right, okay, so the results of our poll. Well, 13% of you are market leaders in your sector. I'd love to talk to you because we can gain some great insight. That would be fantastic. And actually, 29% are good at most things that we do. I think, 32% are in need of improvement, which is good. I think if we stop striving to improve, then we stop learning. So that is the result, and the rest of you didn't respond, so we have that poll there. So in need of improvement, I would definitely like to talk to you as well. Maybe we can help you with that. I would like to hand over to Brian now, who is going to kind of round the session with the last few slides on the future trends within contact centres.
Great, thanks, Louise. So just a couple slides to wrap things up and hopefully tie things back together. So, we're all aware that to run an organization, there's really three key things, and it's the people, the processes, and the technologies. And Protocol One has great expertise in helping you guys with those processes. And then from a kind of a Cisco perspective, I wanted to give you a bit of insight as to what we're seeing from a product perspective, from a global perspective as well. So what are we hearing from our customers? And they're really saying to us that we need platforms as we get into this new era of customer care. We need platforms that are agile. Our platforms that we've had over the past 10, 15, 20 years have allowed us to not allowed us to do the things that the business wanted us to do. They've also been very restrictive down to the nature of the silos. So we need an agile platform, and we need a very flexible platform. And you can see some of the key themes here. So we're wanting from you, Cisco, we're wanting a platform that can provide a personalized user experience out to our organizations, out to our customer base. And that really is about being open and flexible and being able to provide that business agility inside of the customer care platform itself. If you look at the rise of smartphones and tablets, there is that application ecosystem that's out there. For the millions of devices that are actually registered and active today. So why can't we take some of that learnings and apply that to the contact center? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if from a supervisor and operations perspective, you could download the latest gadget or application put that right onto your agent's desktop and provide better functionality or capability in real time without having to go through complex CTI integrations. Wouldn't it be even better if from a reporting perspective, you could move away from spreadsheets and actually move to an environment that's more dynamic and flexible and provide the business insight that that your CEO or your directors need into the contact center, while they're having their cup of coffee in the morning from their iPad. So the flexibility around not only having applications that could be downloadable for the contact center, but even the flexibility in the reporting perspective. They're also saying we're looking for consistent experiences across all platforms. So this can't be a platform that's really good in web and only okay in mobile, right? We need to be able to have a complete interaction history of our customers across the platform, and we need to be able to have that information available to the agents, available to the supervisors at a moment's notice. First contact resolution kept coming back up, and in Louise' survey results, email was still the predominantly deployed technology, and there were some other ones that were on there around presence and instant messaging, but we're actually hearing requests of moving even beyond that and saying, well, Cisco, how can you integrate into our enterprise social software? So not the Facebooks of the world, but the actual internal social software applications for knowledge base, finding remote experts even quicker, and really just reducing that first contact resolution. And then around kind of any device, anywhere, any media, the picture that I opened up with on one of the first slides of the person sitting on the side of a hilltop overlooking a city, that is the reality. Our customers are 24/7 now, and our contact centers definitely need to support that. And whether that's through live agents or whether that's through different channels, give us the flexibility to make that happen. And then from an application consolidation, it is about reducing the inefficiencies outside of our organization. And so many of the contact centers that we visit on a daily basis, agents are still having to fight 5, 6, even upwards of 10 different screens to get the access to the information they want. So with all of these latest Web 2.0 type of technologies that are out there, why can't we take that consumer simplicity, that consumer-based web approach, and how can we bring that into the contact center? And that's definitely one of the things that we've been working on over the past few years. And it really just comes down to simplicity. Looking at the industry for the past 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, understanding all the complexities and challenges, and just really disrupting those complexities and costs and challenges with simplistic integration. So these are all areas that we've been focused on for the past 3 to 4 years, and we're also seeing those rolling out today in customers within the UK, but also even in future projects. Another way to look at this is moving really from what was known as a call center into a contact center, and what we're now terming true customer collaboration. So taking it away from just your customers contacting you, but really truly collaborating with your customer. And I think there's several different definitions of collaboration out there, but the one that I like is really two different people mutually working together to accomplish a specific outcome. And I think that in this day and age, it is something where I want to feel that the other person on the other end of the phone is truly collaborating with me versus just being an agent, and has the ability and the power to do so. So if you look at this slide, there's a couple of key aspects around it. The items in blue are really the traditional technologies that we've all known and loved over the past 10, 20 years. And I think it's critical for us to look at how can we innovate in those areas, because the technologies have advanced in those space. Speech self-service may have had a bad reputation or name 10 years ago, but the idea is that there's times now to actually be re-looking at that and reinvestigating, and that you can get upwards of 80% call success rates in your speech applications today. So why not take a look back at investigating the innovation areas that you can, the technologies that have been around for quite some time. And then you look at kind of the yellow areas, and those yellows are really the kind of the emerging technologies, a lot of the things that we're seeing in a lot of the webinars today. But it also talks about agent efficiencies, your Web 2.0 agent desktops, the ability to provide, a single pane of glass for your agents to quickly resolve the customer's concerns. So I think, having that mindset of kind of moving away from the call center to the contact center, we've definitely gotten through that. But now it's how do we move into really truly collaborating with your customers? I want to give you just a quick example of the piece that I mentioned at the beginning around video, and Luis alluded to this fact. We actually have a customer in the UK that have already moved to this direction on a quite a large scale, very household name, a large building society within the UK. And what's interesting is that this is a very disruptive business model. They're actually looking at their industry they're in and saying, you know what, we can do things differently. We can do things more efficiently, more effectively, provide the same level of service, actually reduce our cost, and actually increase our customer satisfaction all at the same time. And what's interesting is that the technology for them to implement this on was already in-house. They already had the Cisco contact center, and it was one of those things where they could literally just deploy some video endpoints and wrap it around a solution that allowed them to meet the different regulations that would be required, and immediately move into this video contact center world. So imagine walking into your local bank branch, and instead of having to wait 30, 45 minutes for the mortgage specialist to become available, literally within a matter of seconds, you could be connected virtually to the expert and top knowledge experts. So it is becoming a reality. We are seeing deployments already taking place, as I mentioned, and as Luis alluded to, the future is right around the corner. With the evolution of the higher speed consumer mobile networks, and also the WebRTC standards, which is going to become a very hot topic as we soon progress over the next few years. So to wrap things up, I just wanted to revisit this. Like I said, we really want to look at these three waves from three different perspectives. How can we either reduce operational costs? How could we potentially increase productivity? Or how could we be really innovative, just like the video mortgage expert advisor example in the past, and actually be completely strategic to the organization, completely change business models, and really change the face of customer care inside of the UK. So with that, I'd like to close with one more poll, and then we'll move on to some Q&A. And the poll that we've actually got for you now is the question, which technology innovation do you think will have the most influence on your sector? Polls are coming in nicely. Got another 10 seconds to go. Thanks for all the responses so far. All right, down to 0 seconds. So just a little readout of the results. So starting from the bottom, we had 33% of you which did not answer, but looking up, going up from there, video coming in kind of last place. So 7% would impact your sector, and I think that is very sector specific. If you do take a look, I'm going to go up the chain. We're at proactive contact is at 13%, social collaboration at 20%, and customer analytics coming in number one at 30%. So thanks for your participation in that poll. And from there, what I'd like to do is hand it back over to Paul, and we're going to lead a panel Q&A discussion now for the remaining time.
Okay, so firstly, thank you very much to Brian and to Louise for sharing with us the results of the survey. And thank you in the audience for your participation within the surveys, within the polls that we've been taking part. I do have a couple of questions which have come through. The first one is actually the easiest one to deal with, and that is we've had a question: where can I get a copy of the survey results? So for those of you that weren't taking copious notes as Louise was talking, the good news is that everyone who has been involved today will receive an email, and on that email you will get a copy of a report which gives a summary of the questions and answers. You'll also get a copy of the Three Waves white paper, which Brian referred to earlier. So yes, absolutely, we will share the information with you. So look out in your email inboxes for that. A couple of other, one is a slightly more technical question, so I guess that may well go more towards Brian. And this was, what are the challenges in implementing these new digital channels like Facebook and Twitter?
Yeah, I think that the challenges that we face is that the platforms, if we're looking at it from a truly technical perspective, I think the platforms that have been in place for the last 10 to 15 years, have struggles implementing those types of newer IP technologies. The reality is that there's a large install base of technologies that went in 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and if you look back 10 to 15 years, Facebook, the internet, it was all it was just coming about and online, and the customer care technologies at that time had not been innovated for those platforms. I think from a Cisco perspective, we've been born and bred on the internet, and that's where our company came from, and the architecture of our platforms have always been open and always been able to handle these, and so for us to be able to add those types of newer medias and newer channels is quite simplistic and quite straightforward, where I think a lot of the other vendors have struggled in that aspect.
I completely agree with Brian there, but I'd just like to add also sort of a business perspective, and I think there are challenges around training and internal process issues, because obviously these channels are a new way of working. It's not voice, it's not email, there's different speak, so I think there are training implications and agent involvement implications into when you start addressing these channels. That's just a very quick synopsis. There are plenty more challenges around it, but technically and business-wise, I guess those are the main ones.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I think if you look at the waves approach, right, the 3 waves, and we look at like wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, Cisco really kind of got its heritage in kind of the mid wave 2 segment, which is really where it was the breadth of the IP contact center back in the early 2000s, and a lot of the other key players that have been leading experts in contact center for many years, they came out of wave 1, and wave 1 to transition between waves, as you'll read in the white paper, is a bit of a challenging and aspect, and to make that transition successful, it can be very, very, very tough. And so I think we were quite fortunate in this space to be where we're at now, where we entered into this world as an IP only vendor, and didn't have to deal with kind of the legacy TDM approaches that make it very difficult to deal with social media.
Okay, so thank you. So there's a perspective there on integrating new channels. A couple of questions which I think have a kind of a common theme around kind of how to get buy-in to improve customer experience. So the first one is, given internal constraints on budget, how can I influence my stakeholders to allow me to invest in improving customer experience?
From my perspective, anytime you're looking for a business investment, it has to align 100% with the business's priorities, right? So, if you're a public sector company, or if you're a private company, reading that financial statement, understanding the goals from the board of directors, understanding what their key initiatives are, and then aligning to those goals. That's not always going to guarantee the impact, but at least it aligns your investment the best chance of moving forward by aligning to the overall company's priorities. Whether that's simply risk mitigation, or whether that's actually looking at an operational ROI, I would probably beg to say that really focusing on one of those productivity ROIs or even more strategic ROIs is going to get the better visibility. But make sure that you align your company's vision and also the goals of the board at the board level.
Okay, and then the final question, how do the panel think I can influence back office colleagues to share my focus on improving customer experience? So I guess that one is about how do you win hearts and minds with other people that maybe get involved with sort of customers?
I think once again, it's becoming, it's trying to get the contact center more relevant at a board level, right? It's trying to understand what's the value of the contact center to the organization. This varies, by brand. It varies by your overall kind of marketing ambitions as well of the company that you work for. But I think it's about trying to understand, how important is the contact center, and finding out how can we get it to be more board relevant. And then you get to a point where, you have somebody that's a key stakeholder that believes in the contact center at at an executive level, and can have that influence across the rest of the organization. It's if we have these technology silos, and I think we also have the business silos. I think that's exactly where you're referring to, of how do we make sure that from a business process perspective we're all in alignment. And I think it has to come from somebody that has that kind of customer experience strategy lead with business buy-in.
Yeah, it's down to process, isn't it? I mean, if you can prove, at a kind of very operational level, if you can prove that if a customer calls in and that customer ends up dotting himself around the business, and your first contact resolution is going out the window, if you can start to prove that and say, okay, just by having first-time contact resolution, by empowering agents and giving them access to the places in the organisation they need to serve the customer best, you can actually put ROIs against that, because of you'll have reduced calls coming in, reduced repeat calls, etc. So there are ways of measuring it that will actually help you then justify getting buy-in from the rest of the business.
And I think it's from a high level perspective, the words that I was probably saying are a bit light and a bit fluffy, and I think that to take those to the next level, that's where you have to look at engaging some consultants and experts in this industry to be able to build that ROI that Louise was just referring to, and build you a business case. And in most organizations, you can look at doing that, and you can be able to build a business case to make the contact center more relevant to the rest of the organization.
Perfect. That's great. Okay, so just to give some concluding remarks, I guess the question that was in my mind when I first saw the results of the survey were really to tie it back to the role that technology can potentially play. And I guess if you're sitting in the audience and a number of people responded, right about a quarter or a third of you were in the third wave, the kind of customer experience wave of Brian's three-wave model. And therefore, if you've got the right technology platform, you believe that you're empowering your staff to deliver excellent experience, then what I would suggest, if you haven't already done so, is consider benchmarking yourself against others in the industry. And an award scheme that, I've been a contact centre judge for about 6 or 7 years now, but last year I got involved with the UK Customer Experience Awards, and that was an excellent day where finalists came and presented. They kind of pitched. It was a little bit like sort of apprentice-style presentations to a judging panel. And that afternoon of that same day in London, the awards were actually given at a sort of gala lunch. So it's not too late to submit. Next week is the deadline, and I again will be judging in October when the finalists are presenting. So if you are in that place where you're proud of the customer experience, then certainly benchmarking it would be very, very useful. If not, if you've still got some challenges, well, there's lots of people sitting here in the room with me in a very sunny Bedfont Lakes across both Cisco and Protocol One, who would be delighted to have conversations with you. And on that, thank you very much to the presenters. Thanks to Brian. Thanks to Louise. And thank you to the audience for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of the sunshine.
Thank you.